well, there was a cool thing that happened. President Trump had a kind of a notice out that he wanted to have Operation MAGA, which is, of course, Make America Great Again. And the Operation MAGA idea, one reason I want to talk about this is, he's talking about while he's doing the quarantine, what he has to do as president. But while he's doing that, he would like to have the American people. He is specifically asking, for example, Vice President Pence, who has again tested negative, others who have tested negative or have not contracted the virus, get out there, be the campaign, be the Trump campaign in the next 2 weeks while he is quarantining. Get out there, be active, speak for him. He's calling it Operation MAGA, kind of putting into place the people who can get out there and do something on his behalf, people in his administration. But what I wanted to say, and my message for today is this Operation MAGA idea, it is something every single American should feel they've been recruited to be. Every single American who knows the importance of winning this election in 2020, who supports President Trump's agenda, we should all be part of Operation MAGA. It is a great, great way. It's like a rallying cry. You be part of Operation MAGA. You get out there. You do something. You speak up. You stand up for the Trump agenda, for the freedom, the opportunity that the Trump agenda stands for. So Operation MAGA was his language about putting people out there, but there was kind of an Operation MAGA right out there in front of the Walter Reed Hospital. And this was just the coolest thing because it is not orchestrated. It is not paid for by some string puller like George Soros. This is American people who love and support President Trump showing up outside of the Walter Reed Hospital. And here you go with what they did outside the Walter Reed Hospital. Here, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, do you not just love that? These people are they want to get out there and say, President Trump, we know you're in there at Walter Reed. We know you got a positive test. We love you. We're here. We want to show our support. So I'm going to tell you a few more stories about that. But by the way, someone just texted me to tell me that President Trump has announced he's returning to the White House at 6:30 Eastern Time today. And I think when he was tested positive was Thursday night or Friday night. I'm not sure which it was. So he's been at the hospital, I think, since Friday. He's coming home Monday, feeling great. The second part of his latest tweet was, don't be afraid of COVID. Hey, where have we heard that before? From Richard Bartlett in this show. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. I feel better than I did 20 years ago. This is fabulous. This is what I was talking about. The president is going to be living proof of the American people that we've been played by this shutdown of America that we did not need to have under COVID, which is, of course, serious. And yes, we take care of ourselves. And yes, we follow doctor's instructions if we get sick. But we don't have to be afraid. We do not have to live in fear. This was a fabulous outcome and a fabulous backfiring, if there was anything intentional about all these Trump high-level people getting on board, high-level people contracting coronavirus, but still on board with the Trump agenda, the Trump mission, just the whole upbeat pro-America message of Trump. So here you have Trump coming home today, back to the White House, and actually back to the crowds I was showing you a minute ago. So they're outside. This has been going on all night, all day, outside Walter Reed, people with flags and Trump signs and cars and honking. So one thing President Trump did, and you likely saw it, was he had his presidential limousine pick him up, and so he's in his limousine, in the back seat, with glass, partitioning between him and the driver in front, with a mask on, and he actually did a circle around Walter Reed Hospital, waving so that people could see him. People outside the hospital who were out there cheering and waving Trump signs and flags, President Trump gets in his limousine and waves to them. It is the spirit, God bless that man, the spirit of a man who's saying, you know what, I'm going to say yay to these people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for cheering me on. Thank you for the well wishes for getting better. He also apparently ordered pizza for them. He ordered pizza to be brought in because they're hanging out there like, I don't know, all day, all night. order food out there. This is a guy who is just, I mean, if ever there was an effort to take him down, or all of the ghouls on the left who are kind of half hoping that this would be the demise of President Trump, I just love his spirit. He's saying, you know what, actually, I'm going to cruise around, wave to them, and I'm sending pizza. This is a guy who's not going to be pushed around by the hatred of the left or by the ill wishes of the left, and he is reinforcing everything the American people love about him. But a couple of things about our job as being doing Operation MAGA ourselves. I want to tell you something. I've thought many times about this. About how to characterize the battle in election 2020. I often say it's about America and not America. It's about continuing America the free, the great, America, land of liberty, founded, for our founding documents describing what we are, to the America the great, or going over the cliff of the radical left socialist movement that has completely overtaken the Democrat Party. That's one way I describe it. But there's a whole other mindset that I love, and I sense it in the supporters of President Trump, and it really on the people on the right, when you see people just truly worked up outside the hospital, Walter Reed Hospital, waving flags, Trump flags and American flags, and honking and cheering on the president. Part of what those people are saying, and I love this message, but part of what they are saying is America pleads not guilty to all of the ugly accusations the American left makes against this country. Did you ever stop to think about what messages came out of all of the, however many it was, 35 candidates, it wasn't really 35, but the people who ran for president on the Democrat side, the entire competition among all of those people who ran for president on the Democrat side this time was who could be more insulting toward the American people, who could be more accusatory of the American people, who could castigate the American people for racism, xenophobia, homophobia, every other hatred, evil. The entire message of the American left is one big, fat, ugly accusation against the American people. They run on the platform that America is so just filled with evil and racism and hatred and intolerance and greed and bigotry. This is the picture the American left paints of the American people. And because they paint that picture, it justifies the radical power-grabbing mission the left has. Because they accuse the American people of being so bad, so evil, so racist, so terrible, everything they want to do, every bit of power-grabbing effort the American left wants to make is justified because look at the big problem they have to fix. Look at all of the evil inside the American, the country of America that the left has now pointed out that everybody better get on board, giving them all the power they need to fix it. And I think the massive support for President Trump back in 2016 when he was running the first time, the rallies he's had throughout his presidency, his first term, the rallies you see outside of Walter Reed Hospital, one big message you're hearing from the American people is the message to the American left, to the Democrat Party. We, the American people, are not guilty of all of the garbage you hurl at us. We are not guilty of the accusations you make against us. America is not a deeply horrific racist country. America is not a deeply hateful country. We are not a country filled with greed. We're not a country filled with bigotry. America is better than what the left claims you are, and what you really see in this just effusive support for the president is support for his message of love of America, praise for America, praise for the American people. This is what you hear this is what you hear from President Trump and his just love of America, and what you're hearing from the supporters of him who are so sickened by the messages of the American left is, we plead not guilty to what you are saying about us. We're not the ugly nation you say we are. So on that notion, I want to just give you some examples of when I say what the left does is try to penetrate or permeate every aspect of American society and culture with ugly messages about America, with accusations about Western civilization, accusations against the American people. And I'm going to give you some kind of unique examples of that, because I think what's really happening is you see Americans waking up and saying, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're not going to accept that accusation. So just a small story to start with, but you probably saw the NBA. Now I should, if you listen to my show, you know, because I've talked about this before, our family, we love sports. We love the NBA. We love basketball. We love football. Kind of okay with baseball, not big baseball fans, but we love professional sports. You know, we have my husband, our two sons, we love sports. But in the recent years, especially since President Trump came along and has just been just the sunlight of truth on what the left is all about, what has happened in our culture is a rising determination on the left to accuse America of being a bad country, filled with evil people, filled with racists, filled with haters, filled with greedy people. And so the NBA got on board with the Black Lives Matter message. And again, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization which, when it first came out, was first formed and created its website, full of all of its Marxist agenda, flat out saying destruction of the nuclear family, massive socialist programs they were supporting, massive big government control over everything. As the American people started tuning in and reading the website, many Black Americans said, well, I don't want that. I don't want us to be, I like the nuclear family. I like freedom. I like capitalism. So the Black Lives Matter movement has changed and morphed and hidden its identity, changed its website. But the fact is, Black Lives Matter is a radical Marxist organization. And even though it's taken all those agenda items off of its website, doesn't mean that they have changed their agenda. That's who they are. The radical Marxist leftists. That's who Black Lives Matter is. And more Americans can see that. And more Americans utterly resent the broad-based, broad-brush accusation against the American people that we are a deeply racist country. They do not want to, they are pleading not guilty to that accusation of the American left. So NBA comes along, and we had the COVID shutdown, then they finally get going again, and you have Black Lives Matter painted on the floor of most of the gyms, on people's shirts. They're the shirts they wear while they're playing. You have all sorts of Black Lives Matter messaging, and the American people have figured out that when someone says Black Lives Matter, of course, every person's life matters. Every individual's life matters. The life of Black Americans, white Americans, every skin color, race, hue, ethnicity, national origin, everyone's life matters. But the movement called Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement intended to take down America and its foundational freedom. And it's also an organization, because that is the mission of the left, to utterly, radically transform America. They go after America, they attack America by calling America racist. The Black Lives Matter movement is premised on the lie that America is a deeply, horribly, racially ugly country, intolerant country, and more Americans are saying, not guilty. Not guilty. We are not what you say we are. So the NBA, just one example of the American people that pleading not guilty to the false accusations of the left is how bad their ratings are. For the NBA Finals game, NBA Finals Game 2 ratings crash, meaning reduction of people willing to sit there and watch the NBA play with a Black Lives Matter message everywhere, crashed by 68%. The least watched finals game in history. This is one way the American people are saying, not guilty. We're not going to accept this. We're not going to accept the accusation you're making against us and pretend it's okay to say that. Not going to do it. So they're shutting that down. It's the American people pleading not guilty to what the left is saying about America. And this is another story. It gets a little bit more involved, but it's a really good example of what I'm talking about today. What the left tries to do in our country is seize on history, long ago history. That's what the 1619 Project out of the New York Times seized on long ago history of wrongdoing, the slave trade, or slavery in America. Seize on long ago history to justify their tyrannical Marxist power grab of today. What the left is doing, it's very important to understand this. The left is using genuinely wrong things, really bad things that happened a long time ago, ancient history, 1619 slave trade. Slavery in our country has been gone since 1865. But the left capitalizes on ancient history to justify its Marxist power grab in America today. And the point of what they're doing is to get you so worked up about ancient history and what happened in the past that you're surrendering your liberty. You're saying, oh, okay, well, now that you're pointing out how bad this is, sure, tell me what I have to do to fix it. Oh, surrender my livelihood, surrender everything I have, give everything away to the government. Just let the government tell me if I'm allowed to get out of bed in the morning, where I'm allowed to work, what I'm allowed to do. The left is engaged in a Marxist power grab of our country. They're using race as the ploy to get you to surrender. Now I want to turn and tell you the most interesting story. And I honestly, this came across my, I became aware of it because I have a good friend who works in the very high-end, food, very high-end food magazines and the writing and the thinking that goes into the very high-end cuisine and the sommeliers and the analysis of wine and fine food. And so it's a whole industry, of course, which I don't know a lot about, but I have a friend who works in it. And she sent me this article, and she's talking about, this goes to my point about the left is attempting at every level of American society to permeate with seemingly non-political topics, like what kind of food tastes good, who has the best recipes, who's got the best new restaurant, what kind of spices are popular in restaurants. A seemingly non-political topic, but leftists have managed, even in this context, in the high-end cuisine, food and wine industry, to introduce their endless, relentless racial accusation against Western civilization. The quick story is this. So there's a apparently very successful high-end woman who is a very successful, I guess she has cookbooks and she's a chef. Her name is Alison Roman. Alison Roman. So she writes books and she has recipes she's famous for and she tells people about them. So she's under attack for, and this is their terms, the colonization of spices. Colonization of spices, seriously, and ethnic erasure. And why she is now in the doghouse with the radical left is because she loves to tout delicious food. And so she talks about, food that has spices that came from India. So she'll talk, or a really wonderful Indian spice market she found in England or London or wherever it was. So she can talk about this fabulous market has these spices, and this is really unique, and you put this spice in this recipe. She's all into food. She's a great cook, a chef, I guess. But the point of it is, even in the arena of chefs and cuisine and high-end wines, political correctness, the intolerance, the endless effort of leftists in this world to use ancient history to justify their just relentless political correctness, relentless attack on Western civilization. She's under attack, and she's being accused and written about as though she's just the most intolerant person ever because she's talking about spices that came from India without giving due recognition to the ancient history of the fact that during the course of of these spices coming to the Western civilization, coming to what was then the UK, was the big shipping industry that brought spices from India. She's being attacked for writing great recipes and touting great spice markets in UK because she doesn't genuflect in apology for the fact that centuries ago, when she was not around, other people who were not around suffered in the course of the development of the Silk Road and the transmission of Indian spices. And so they talk about her, she's using ingredients, there's a criticism of her, using ingredients like cardamom, harissa, blah, 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 listing them all, and never acting as though she understands these components come with certain cultural traditions attached. Why doesn't she mention cultural traditions about spices? I'm getting at the point, my friends, getting at the point that the left uses every single aspect of American life, of Western culture, to push their message that because that ancient conduct that has nothing to do with anyone alive today is to be, you can beat people over the head, you can accuse them of being intolerant. They use race, ethnicity, all these arguments to attack Western civilization, to undermine Western civilization, undermine Western culture, and even a chef. So my friend who's telling me this story, she's sending me these articles talking about how it's become so impossible to be a conservative in the arena of food and wine and high culture cuisine, because you're supposed to be not, if you are involved in that all, you should be critical of America, should be critical of the UK, should be critical of people who anciently, hundreds of years ago, were involved in the transmission of spices from one country to another. The whole concept of introducing, just torturing the fun and beauty of enjoying good food with political correctness, with political attacks, cultural attacks, attacks of cultural insensitivity. I mean, you just can hardly stand how the left uses everything back to their political message of hatred of the West, hatred of Western civilization, hatred of America, hatred of anyone who isn't somehow a person of color. And I know that was a little bit of a ramble, and you might be saying, can we get to the point here? But I'll tell you what the point is. We have to be alert as defenders of America, defenders of Western civilization, defenders of freedom, defenders of the greatness of America, to recognize that leftists in this world have used the education system in our country from pre-K through graduate school. They have used culture. They have used Hollywood. They have used everything in media. All of it is always about the leftist agenda to undermine America, Western civilization, freedom, and the goodness of the American people, including even in the food and wine world. So to be a fighter, to be part of Operation MAGA, call out idiocy like that in every aspect of your life. Call it out. Stand up for the goodness of America. Do not let this kind of garbage happen, whether it's in the culture, cuisine, high wine, the high cuisine kind of world, or any other place it is, whether it's NBA, it is cuisine, any other aspect of life. Call out what the left is doing to America. Call out what the left is doing to our culture, diminishing the beauty and greatness of it, all under the guise of, we just want to expose, so you understand. The left is using ancient history, when things did happen that were obviously terribly wrong. Race, slavery, and all the business with the Silk Road. The left uses ancient history to dupe the American people into accepting their Marxist agenda. And the only people standing in the way are people like us who see what they're doing. Don't even give them an inch.